Okay, well, hello everyone. I'm Kalina Bryant. I head customer marketing here at Signifyd.
You need to raise your voice,
Okay.
or you can use this.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. How about now? Can you all hear me okay? Perfect. All right. So I've been with Signifyd for about a year now, a year and 3 months now. And when I first started at Signifyd, their definition of customer marketing was literally to generate just customer videos. And they didn't know exactly how to scale those videos. So awesome videos, but didn't really know how to tie dollar signs into that. And so when I took the opportunity, I wanted to design a full scale of customer marketing programs for the entire organization to see value in, and to also put customer marketing on the map at the company. And so by doing so, what I'm going to show you today is some of the things that we've successfully have designed, and really go into detail on the layout of how we actually said what is most important for us right now, and how can we achieve that on a quarterly basis. And then I'll open it up for Q&A. So many things in my head. So far in 2019, what I'm going to talk to you about is we designed different events here at Signifyd dedicated just to our customers. We started off in a trial run trying to figure out what would actually get our customers to take time out of their busy day and actually come and have a happy hour, actually sit down for dinner and even connect. And so we decided to launch our first flow, which is our customer meetups. And so far in 2019, we launched one in LA, New York, San Diego, and San Francisco. And what started off as just a pilot, we're able to now receive budget to double that. So this year we're going to be double and actually expand into EMEA, which is awesome.
It's just for existing customers or also for prospects?
I'm going to get to that. It's for both. So it starts off with customers, and we also open it up to a few prospects, and we also open it up to our partnerships. And then also we have now a community, we have our first customer advisory board, and we have new case studies, which our first one that was really major here was actually revamping our TEI report. And I'll talk more about that. But most of the times in organizations, you do wonderful customer stories, but what we learned is a big impact is the total economic impact report, which actually shows the key findings on what your customers are saving by using your actual platform. And that's been the #1 case study this year. And actually still this year that the sales team has been able to leverage and actually get full pipeline and get that customer or that prospect all the way to the end, and actually turn them into a customer. And when actually going up head to head with a prospect or a competitor of ours, that full TEI report has actually saved us and actually got us to the finish line. And so those are some of the cool things that I think coming from Signifyd. Of course, it's a startup. You're doing multiple things all the time, but really honing in how do you make this customer marketing department successful, and also building it from scratch. I started off as a one-person kind of department. Now we have about 2 people on my team, and we're opening up a few other positions in EMEA. But starting off trying to figure out how do you juggle executing all of these different programs and also showing how to scale, and also basically catering to each one of your customers that you respond to. It can be overwhelming. And I think that in tech, a lot of the times customer marketing is seen as a function and they are only open to giving one head count. So what I try to do is really tie in the programs to dollar signs, to where when the time has come, we can actually open it up to saying, hey, we are open to having a head count. We will give you one person here and one person in a different area. And I think that this layout has turned out pretty well. And so some of the things, sorry, this is like a full deck that I presented to my CS team about 2 weeks ago. So what I think has worked well so far with customer marketing, I tie in each one of my programs with the goals that the company has. And so this year, the goals for Signifyd is how do we drive enterprise penetration? How do we drive core vertical penetration? How do we get more exposure in Europe? How do we have more opportunities for retention and upsell? And so with these 5 pillars, I try to look at have we currently designed already in customer marketing, and how can we actually make an impact on each one of these? And I think the importance of this part is, with our bonus structure here at Signifyd, we have to tie in a certain amount of revenue that we brought in order to receive your full bonus. And a lot of the times in marketing, no matter how many different things that you do, you can show that you brought in a certain amount of ops or pipeline, or you can say, hey, I know that particular prospect that's now a customer. However, when it comes to the bottom line and your ELT team is saying, yeah, that's great, but all you did was use a lot of money in marketing and you can't really show proof. And I think that the nice thing now with customer marketing is you can actually tie each one of those programs into that. And I also think that it's job stability in marketing to have now customer marketing as a foundation, because when you're thinking about it now, you have a customer advisory board that might have some of your key executives, to where if you get them in a room and they actually validate and say, hey, I'm a partner of you now, it's hard to actually say, we don't need this program, or we're not willing to give you X amount of funding for this program, because executives actually see the value in it. And so based on the key verticals that I have here, I try to outline all of the different programs that we have in customer marketing. So if you look at objective 1, driving the enterprise penetration, what I've tried to outline is the strategy of course, designing customer engagement opportunities, whether that's in person, whether that's virtually, and also whether that's kind of one-to-one meetings, visiting with your executives. So what I have here is we have something called flow meetups, which is actually really just looking at a location and outlining how many customers do we have inside this region. So let's take, with Signifyd, we offer fraud protection for retail e-commerce users. And so the biggest audience that we have is in Los Angeles and in New York. So when I first designed the flow meetups, I looked at that specifically. And so inside Los Angeles, we have most of our high touch accounts. And so I tried to look at, number one, what does the contract look like? Are the customers healthy? And we use Salesforce to figure out if, if they're in the green, if they're in the yellow, or if they're in the red risk account. And so looking at our audience, things were quite well in Los Angeles. And then I also looked at open pipeline that was in Los Angeles and what our account executives were actually working with. And so based on that, I was able to talk to executives and say, hey, we should actually do a trial run in Los Angeles to see if we have, number one, enough people that are willing to take time out of their day. And so what we decided to do is really have a nice rooftop gathering. I think the place is actually called Perch LA. We were given, I think it was $20,000 to make that event successful. And with a venue actually in Los Angeles, you'd be surprised, it's actually very cheap compared to San Francisco or compared to New York. And so with that, we really laid out, how do we get the customers in a seat? And number one was having a fireside chat with one of our key customers, someone that had a nice brand behind them, a nice success story, not just at their current company, but in their past to show success. And making sure that they were an executive, a VP or above, and then also making sure that they were comfortable with speaking. And so leveraging that brand, we had our first customer by the name of Board Writers, which is an enterprise account for us. And that individual was willing to talk about his experience with retail, all the way from starting Hugo Boss and Ralph Lauren, and then ending up at Board Writers, which to us, we were able to actually market that to where customers were willing to say, hey, I'm gonna learn something if I attend this. And then two, we had our executive also participate in that fireside chat. And I think the best thing about that is we were marketing it probably 4 weeks out and having the combination of a really nice venue that most of the time people can't get into. It's usually stretched out with the wait list, having that rooftop view, and also offering a 3-course meal for them to really sit, have surprise and delight with key executives, I think was a good turnout. But in between that, when we looked at our customers that were registering as we were targeting different prospects, we were using their names as well to say, you have the opportunity to talk to X, Y, and Z and continue to network, et cetera. And so what was supposed to be about 15 to 20 people in a room actually turned out to be 50 people. And so within that, we had about 3 to 4 prospects. And at the end of the quarter, those deals actually closed. So it went from having radio silence, trying to target prospects, our account executives emailing, trying to get into these accounts, and then all of a sudden saying, hey, why don't you just connect with me over a drink and meet some of the customers? And they were able to have live customer references instead of setting up a phone call. And I think that this was the first thing that actually tied into saying, hey, customer marketing is something that should stick. Because we were able to show we went from zero revenue, our certain pipeline that was supposed to technically last about 2 quarters. It was supposed to be a 2-quarter cycle, and it was actually shortened because they were able to talk to an executive. They were able to get 3 to 4 different customer references and get validation. So I think that having that as a success in Los Angeles, we now do this once a quarter in different cities. And ultimately, it ties into enterprise penetration. And I would say also executive dinner. So we realize it's nice to have 50 people in a room, but you also have to look at dollar signs. And so we decided in smaller cities where we might have a nice pool of customers, but not enough to do a full-on 50 to 60 event. We actually do custom, really nice dinners at 5-star restaurants. We usually block out one room. Usually it's about 10 people sitting down. We have about 2 customers invited to have surprise and delight, and the rest is open to prospects to fill those seats. And we have usually 1 or 2 executives coming in. And we found that when people actually feel safe in a room, having dinner, being able to chat with each other, that actually gives a better opportunity to have that one-to-one conversation. And ultimately, if you can get that executive, the executive sponsor, the one that signs the contract, we've learned that it comes a long way where you can actually be on text message basis with these individuals, and they're more eager to sign a contract with you versus a competitor because they feel compelled and they feel that they actually trust you and you're more of a partner, not just another vendor. So I would say that that's a good one. And ultimately, we're also laying out a referral program. The referral program actually is tied in with our community. We use Influitive. And with Influitive, it's a gamification platform where they can actually dive in, do different challenge, they call them challenges, but they're different activities. And ultimately, they get rewarded with different kind of perks. It could be all the way from a water bottle, all the way from, having surprise and delight, depending on the points that you gain. But we've also combined a referral program to where if you submit that particular prospect and that prospect goes all the way into the pipeline, turns into a customer, they get different gift cards. And ultimately, if it's a certain size of an account, they may get up to $2,500 from us. So that's been a nice turnout. And also our customer advisory board has been a very big thing for us because we weren't in connection with any of our high touch accounts. And by selecting these members to be a part of our customer advisory board, now they're more of a partner for us. The biggest one, I can't give that many results for just yet because the virtual conference takes place next Thursday. But we're actually rolling out our very first virtual conference, which it's actually the perfect timing because of this disease that's going around. So we went from, our goal was to have 150 attendees. And last week our registration was about 100. Now we're at 250 for the simple fact our last campaign said, most of the conferences are getting canceled. And our campaign is saying, hey, you don't have to miss our conference because you can join on your laptop. And the amount of people that are interested is pretty amazing. But for us, we're looking at doing our first virtual conference to see if we're ready to actually do an in-person user conference. And this has been great. It's more so gathering customers, partners, and some of our internal employees highlighting, why they chose Signifyd number 1, and also showing success stories. So there's basically the same tracks that you would have for your in-person user conference, just having a live view on-site inside your laptop and actually having a full experience. There's still an expo hall. There's still these different gamification opportunities for you, but you're doing it all online. So I'm excited to see the, number one, the pipeline that we receive from it, but also the customers that we see that are very interested and, hopefully they'll be looking to do a big user conference with us in the future. So that's a pretty big turnout for us, I think. More to come there on next Thursday at this time, actually. I should be able to share results. But that's what we have tied in with enterprise penetration. For us, when we look at core verticals, I strictly tie this into customer case studies, which is very similar to what Diana is doing. A lot of the times I've seen it where customers are willing to go above and beyond, but when you get to the very end of that customer case study, a lot of the times the legal department might just shut the whole thing down. And so sometimes you spend, 3 full days of actual work doing these videos. And then at the very end, when you think you're actually going to publish it, you might have someone say, no, it's not going to work. So we've decided to break down our customer case studies in tiers. So for some case studies, they're of course going to be private, but it's something that our customer, our sales organization can still use. They're able to at least show some of the numbers, talk to them in one-to-ones, especially if they're in the last stage. We usually have in-person meetings for our prospects to come in, and we actually highlight some of our key accounts that won't leave this room basically, but we give them a full overview as to what we're doing for certain accounts. And we use those as our private case studies. And then the great ones, of course, is external case studies, which you'll see on the website, et cetera, and then video customer stories. But what we've been trying to do is our verticals here at Signifyd, of course, goes all the way from fashion to sports gear to certain levels of retail, whether it's a Walmart or a Rite Aid. But each one of those case studies is sectioned off in verticals for us. And that's how we're able to focus on how do we get to that enterprise segment. And so when I look at core verticals and outlining that for customer marketing, I strictly tie it into how do we generate juicy collateral for each vertical. And so that's been working pretty well. And then for us, for Europe, we're a little bit smaller in Europe. We're not as big with us being a startup, but we're starting to have momentum there. We have our engineer department in Belfast, and we have a big sales office in London. And so now we're at a point where we're ready to mimic everything that we've done for the US to do in Europe, which I think is working quite well. We're starting off small, getting people inside the community, and ultimately getting to a point where we're ready to do that big flow meetup. So more to come there. And then for us, also looking at net retention and upsell, that's a big one. I think that thinking about customer marketing, a lot of the times I've seen customer marketing sit in marketing, and I've also seen customer marketing sit in customer success. And at times, I think they both work well. But I think that if you're on the marketing side and you sit in marketing, I think it's very important for you to have a good cross-functional relationship with CS. Because ultimately the customer success department will always own the retention and upsell numbers. And I think that with customer marketing, a lot of the things that you're doing, you're of course helping the sales organization, but you're really focusing on those current customers and how to get them to stay customers, how to get them to, if they only have a one-year contract with you, your goal is to make sure that they have a 3-year contract. And so working closely with the customer success team, I've outlined whatever their net retention number is and their upsell number. I make sure that my programs are also aligned with that. So technically when they hit their numbers, customer marketing has as well. And so with that, we've been doing something a little different. So for us, we've segmented some of our high enterprise accounts, which I look at them as our 150. And so I've taken a step back and actually designed a complete customer lifecycle journey for those accounts. With our top 150, they bring in the most revenue. And so ideally, we've designed different email campaigns to where if they have their first renewal, they automatically get surprise and delight from customer marketing, but they also get a targeted email that's associated with their customer success manager. And so it's a nice way to start the relationship. Sometimes you're not in contact with these individuals, but then also as they're going further with our product and they're starting to have quick wins, a lot of the times they're having their first check sent from us because of certain things that has happened with the product. It's actually working. So they received like a chargeback recovery for us is basically when our product is actually working, we send our customers a certain amount of dollar signs based on the different transactions that have come in. We pay them a certain amount of money. And so ideally at first they were just receiving their check and it's nice, but when you actually celebrate that, send it in a targeted email saying, how does it feel to actually receive money from your vendor? Actually excites that executive sponsor, allows them to respond to us, begin that relationship even more. And then we do nice wins, of course, for birthdays. We make sure that we send different gifts for our customers. For their 1-year anniversary or for also their company anniversary, we send different surprise and delights just to keep that relationship going. But we're really trying to figure out how do we touch a customer at every nice part of their journey without overly harassing them, but just making sure that they know that we're thinking of them and that we're top of mind for them. So that's pretty much a plot, but that's pretty much the lay of the land for 2020 and what we've been mimicking from 2019.
I have a question. Can you talk a little bit more about the referral program? Because I've used it in Florida, but just for customers, but you're using it for the sales team, right?
Yeah, so this is actually a really good win for us. We just built it this quarter.
Okay.
And so we were trying to figure out with Influitive, when Influitive is being sold to you, you think that it can take over the world. They tell you that they're lithium, so then all of a sudden you think you're getting a community for your partners, your customers. That's not true. They also tell you that it's gamification and that you're going to have your customers super engaged with you all the time. That's not true. You have to really work hard and design an excellent program to get your customers always going. But one thing that I wish they did talk about is you can build a very successful referral program on their platform. It's actually hidden a lot of the times. They have kind of a template for you. But what I've learned is their integration works really well with Salesforce and it works really well with Gainsight, and that's two things that we use. So with our referral program, we outline, and I think I actually have a slide in here. I can show you. A second. This one. So if you go to our website right now, you see the layout. So this is what you see when you go to the website, the Influitive page, but it highlights, of course, you can get a $50 gift card for submitting someone, but ultimately you can get up to $2,500 if you, if that person or the person that you refer, if they go all the way through and they actually sign, depending on the size of that deal, you can get the max of $2,500. And so what we've been doing with that is we have incentives for the sales team, we have incentives for the customer success team, and then also you have the incentives for the customers or anyone that actually submits this. The cool thing about it is the tracking mechanism. So everything that you submit here, the customer advocacy manager on my team, she reviews it once it's submitted. And the way we have it is if it is a real reference, we allow them to give an introduction. And if that call actually is set up properly and the call is actually taken by an account executive, they will automatically receive the $50 gift card. And then if the salesperson actually says, hey, this is a real opportunity, right after that call, an opportunity is created inside Salesforce, and then it's constantly tracked on our end as well. And so if that deal actually closes, of course, we keep our promise and submit the amount of money to the person that was referred to. But if the salesperson, for example, was to have submit that person, they receive an incentive. But then also from a customer success perspective, a lot of the times they're having executive briefings every quarter, and a lot of the times you sit down with that customer and they actually refer a friend of theirs to them right away. And so right now, or before, customer success would say, oh, this is wonderful, let me get you in contact with an account executive. But after that, they receive no credit for it. And that was long-term a problem, because if you think about it, they had the relationship, they gave the introduction, the salesperson all of a sudden closes wonderful deal, but they actually don't get a percentage of that. And so now the referral program, they have an incentive to receive 1% of that closed deal if they're actually referring it. And so that makes the CS team very excited, of course, to promote the referral program because they actually get something in return. And so ultimately, we mimic, our partnership team does something similar to this already. So we mimic what they do with their different tiers. And so make sure collaborating with our executives in customer success, our executives in account management, making sure that if we did any of this, that it would actually tie into number one, getting approved from our finance department, but also making sure that once we communicate it, everyone knows that they find value. So I think that it's been working pretty well for us so far. And the integration piece, I would say, with an Influitive being able to plug into Salesforce and also Gainsight, just the tracking in general is really nice because we're able to run the different reports to show the value there. And then it's really nice because each quarter we give a shout out to every deal that has come from this referral program. We give a full shout out to the CS person if it came from them, and also to the account executive. And if it's just some stranger that actually found us off of LinkedIn and submitted someone, we actually give shout outs to the fact that it's working socially as well. And it's nice because even though Influitive is technically a gated community, this page is actually the only one that's not gated. And so if they do fill out this information and they're not part of the community, there's another segment for us to still collect that information. So I would say that the referral program inside Influitive is definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, that's great because, you know, SPIF programs, you go back and forth, do we give them money for this? And what type of activity is it going to be? I think this is a great program because it's just really clean. And like you said, whether it's sales rep or customer success, that everybody benefits, right?
Yeah, and I would say this also puts us on the map because if you think about it, the sales organization, they're already doing their own referrals. When they're closing a deal, a lot of the times they're already trying to put the bug in saying, hey, can you refer me to someone? And I would say that now we actually just have a full process. And so with us just putting in the layout and just putting in the work saying, here's what you receive, here's the process. Now customer marketing gets full credit for this entire referral program. And so what we try to do is just take exactly what was already happening, just not documented, having conversations with the sales department, having conversations with the CS department and partnership department saying, all of this is organically already happening, but how do we just take it and actually put a stamp saying that this is a referral program and it lives in marketing. And I think that this has been very helpful and something that the entire organization sees and actually respects. So I would say that this is a nice one to own for customer marketing.
It's a good win.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, to be honest with you, I think that with customer marketing, being successful in customer marketing, you just pay attention to the things that are already going on. And in most organizations, things are working, it's just not written down as a process. And no one actually has the time or bandwidth to write down that process. The sales organization, they know usually exactly what they're doing, but they're not going to spend the extra 2 hours a week to actually jot it down. They're going to figure out their rhythm and they're going to actually do it, but there's no tracking it. Same thing for CS. And I think the cool thing in customer marketing, we come from a background usually where you either sold before, you've done some type of enablement, or you've done some type of program management. So if you tie all three of those things together, you can actually take every single program and just really excel at it and scale it. And I think that many people, when they see things documented, they actually respect your organization a lot more because you've actually taken pressure off of them to just go and look at that document, look at the process, and actually have a key person to ask a question to.
Do you have any objection from the customer, like they have a conflict of interest? Because customer, I don't know what your company does, but a lot of times customer will not accept money from the.
That's a good one. So that's a really great question. So one of my customers is Walmart in Mexico, and they legally can't receive a t-shirt from us. They can't receive anything, not even a water bottle. And so in that case, we generate the amount of money if they are to close or bring us a certain referral, we turn that into charity. So we actually will donate to any charity of their choice.
Do you have more slides?
No, I think this is pretty much.
Any other questions for Kalina before we move on?
Lots of things I can talk about, but
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have only 20 minutes, so I'm going to end the session.
Any other questions while we connect?
So you mentioned the customer advisory board. How did you get started from the beginning?
Yeah, so that's a good one. I actually did a webinar for Gail with 2 months on the full customer advisory board layout. I think you have the recording.
Yeah, we have a recording.
But ideally, I actually sat in this room with all of our executive leadership team and actually pitched what we should do for a customer advisory board. And we had to design the mission, number one, and also the scope. And the mission, you have to make sure it really ties into not just customer experience and what you think your customers will like, but you want to make sure you tie it into the company's overall goals, but also specifically the product goals. When you're thinking about the customer advisory board, you also have to look at what level you want. So bigger organizations, they have different types of customer advisory board. You have your executive tab, you have your end user tab, but with a smaller organization, you can just have a generic one, which I would start off having executives and above, so VP level. Usually those are the best because they can get you in the right person. If they can't sign the contract, they know the direct person, but also they're close enough to their team members to understand what's working with the product and what needs to be solved or increased. And I would say picking that list when putting everyone in a room, I had a targeted list for everyone to look at as our top tier customers. And we actually sat in a room saying we're in good contact with them, we're in good standing. They would actually be a good source for us in a partnership stand. And then when looking at that, we actually designed a template to send invitations and actually highlighting key benefits. So I would say also to design a charter, and in the webinar it says all of this. But you would design a charter that says the mission, the scope, the expectations. Usually it's a 12-month contract that you sign to be a part of the customer advisory board, which basically just says that you're going to be available at least 2 times that year to have an in-person session, and also maybe like together for one virtual call. And then usually they share that with their legal department depending on how big the company is. And they usually sign, they give full layouts on the product. Last year we did a big one in July in San Diego, and we flew out 7 of our CAB members. And we actually showed a full roadmap of, this is what we're thinking about designing for 2020. Does this roll out, or does this follow your expectations? And also it's really nice because sometimes CAB members will tell you exactly what our competitors are telling them. And they'll tell us what directions we should go in or what we should definitely not do. And I would say if you build a small, intimate CAB and you actually design that trust, you can get a lot from the board. But there's a big webinar that Gail will send to you.
Were there any pushbacks from the internal team when you first talked to, share that idea with the executives internally?
No, and I think the reason for that is when I was interviewing for this role, one of my key pillars was to design a customer advisory board for the organization. And I had a highlight as to what a customer advisory board meant to me and why it would fit inside marketing, why it would be led from us. And so that was something that they were already keen to. And then it was more so just making sure that the layout and the kind of timeline made sense to the executive leadership team, and also showing who should be involved. I think that was more important to them, and also just understanding, is this really going to happen? So I had one slide that specifically showed the full timeline as to when you can actually say you have a customer advisory board. And I think that was effective to them because it just wasn't philosophical, it was actually real, and there were steps in place as to how to actually get there. And I would say that for customer marketing last year, that was actually the biggest program, because we actually did our first press release and was able to use all these wonderful logos. And I would say we actually did not have logo rights until the CAB members joined. And we actually didn't have a right to share anything until we got full approval with them joining. And after they join and sign, hey, I want to be on the CAB, they actually give their rights away to actually do that. And I think that was the biggest awareness that we received. And I think it worked out well. It's honestly a list of 6 to 7 customers with high brand names that are willing to take phone calls for us, go on references, attend events. They usually are my spokespeople for our customer meetups. And it's nice for them. It's like they get a nice dinner with us, they get to connect, they talk one-to-one with our product team. And so for them, it's fair exchange. They don't feel like they're taking too much out of their day because they're looking forward to it. And they also get to solve a few problems of their own. We have a lot of people on the product end that want to branch ideas from our product side so they can talk to their executives back in their office. So it's nice for them to get validation from us.
We'll have time for more questions.